the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 188, recorded Friday, March 27th, 2015. Don't forget your dongles.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us this week is Mr. Mike Brandis from Vadio. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. We're starting to thaw out up here in Minnesota. I know you got snow, but we didn't today.
Yeah, it was odd. I was actually driving around this morning and had a bunch of flurries, so that was weird. Not weird for St. Louis. I mean, it's actually snowed on opening day for the Cardinals before, so... also with us, not to confuse anything, but Michael Braithwaite from Clear One. How are you, sir?
We're doing well. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely. And last but not least, my favorite genius in all the world, Justin Kennington from Crestron. How are you, sir?
Doing great. It's been nearly a week since it snowed here.
Well, and he's in New York, so... but Michael, not all kidding aside, Justin is also the winner of last year's Young AV Professional at Infocom 2014. If you're watching this live and you want to nominate somebody else, I don't think Michael and I are eligible anymore for the Young AV Professional, but Brandis is, and there's a whole bunch of other folks that deserve it. There's also a Women of Infocom award, all sorts of other stuff. I think our buddy George Tucker could probably win the Lifetime Achievement Award at this point, but that's an old joke, so I probably shouldn't say that. Speaking of Infocom, a couple quick things. First of all, they got something really cool. This is more of a informational, hey, just so you know thing. All three of your companies exhibit, so you're not eligible for this. So if you want to comment, you can. But they have a new thing. It's a first timer. It's almost like a rookie row type thing. It's called the Innovations Showcase. And if you go to infocomshow.org and click on the show floor section, go to the Innovations Showcase. If you are a first-time exhibitor for Infocom, you can do all sorts of things for $2,000, which is really, really cheap, compared to other booths. I won't ask any of you three how much yours cost, but for $2,000, you can get a space in this area, show people your stuff, and the people attending Infocom get to vote on who has the best innovative product. The winner gets $10,000 in a 10x10 booth at next year's show. So it's kind of cool. So. But that wasn't you. I have another manufacturer in my studio too. So, but at this point, we're going to continue on to another part about Infocom. They're starting a new grant program, and so our buddy Craig McCormick from Commercial Integrator writes this story, and the headline is "Kudos to Infocom, Shame on its Members." Of which all of us are, including myself.
Us.
Huh? Well, yeah. ICIF grant program is something they started, and they're asking it's to get folks involved in the industry. There are several thousand members of Infocom. Five of them have contributed money to this. So I guess shame on the four of us. I mean, I haven't chucked in, any money to this. Mr. Brandis, we'll kick this off with you. Is this, where should manufacturers or where should integrators be in standing behind this ICIF program?
Well, I think it's incredibly important for them, I mean, not only with ICIF, but any other way that they can to get young people into the industry. I mean, you think about a lot of the manufacturers, ourselves included, all three of us that have been around for a long time, You've got your old legacy products, and you've got your engineers that originally programmed them back in the 80s and the 90s, and those people are, probably getting ready to retire. And then you think about how much of your intellectual property is wrapped up in those engineers, how much of your branch and base of your code for manufacturers, or how much of your entire integration firm's design experience and expertise is wrapped up in a single person, age 50 or over. And you think, when are you bringing people in to start training them? How are you getting younger people in the industry? So I think the ICIF program is a great way to do that. I was talking with Craig about it, and personally, he was like, it's amazing. You have this wonderful opportunity, and plenty of people are passing up the opportunity to get the next big designer or salesperson, all because they don't want to donate or contribute money.
That's a good point. Mr. Kennington, now I'm not asking you for Crestron's official line on this, because you guys have got a pretty substantial internship program. But, from manufacturers or even integrators or consultants, where should we as members of Infocom be with this ICIF?
Well, you're not asking for it, but I'll give you some of it. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, we do, at Crestron, really, it's important to us for the reasons that Mike just described. We have to get new blood into the company. I mean, we have an older generation retiring, but we just need, frankly, university students are cheaper than experienced guys, and so you need to have a farm system when you get to be a certain size. You can't just go out and hire 10-year experienced engineers all the time. You can't find enough of them. So yeah, our internship program this summer we'll bring in 50 kids, in college or just out, investing over $500,000 in this thing, so that we can sort of grow that next generation of talent that our business needs just to survive. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, I think personally we should do more to encourage more talent in this industry. Right now, too much of the talent gets away to the Facebooks and Googles and Microsoft, big, pure software companies of the world. And here in Pro AV, we need more and more of that. And if we don't learn how to lure and attract that kind of talent, then we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Braithwaite, Justin brought up a good point, a farm system. So what does our farm system look like for AV?
Well, I think he's spot on, because in the past, you had folks that were entering this industry from the love of music. They were musicians or wannabe musicians, or they were they loved putting together gear. They loved installing. There was some reason like that. A lot of if you look at a certain age group in our industry, there's a huge percentage that they love music, or they were musicians or gigs. There was something about that. Yeah. Today, I'm not so sure that you see the same. You don't see people who just love to, I can download an app and do this, or there was a time where you built your own amplifier, you built your own filter arrangements, you built your own speakers, you did all that, and so there was this love of electronics, microphones, reproducing the sound that fed this whole industry. Today, where people buy stuff off the shelf and download an app, there's not that farm. That was our farm system previously, and so I think Justin's point of why they're going to Facebook and Google and Netflix, why you see that is that is they have a love for the apps, or a love for streaming, or a love for So I agree. I think we not only do we need the investment into them, but we do have to show career paths, and this is a real industry, and that people can enjoy for their whole career.
Okay, so let me ask this, and you're right. I've actually also met a number of folks who are former broadcasters like myself that, it's either musicians or a number of old radio guys or old TV guys and gals. So there's that aspect, right? You've got the cables and this, that, and the other, and the mics, and that makes sense. And Michael, you make a good point with now it's the love of the networking, it's the love of the programming. I'm going to kick it back to you and then wrap it around to the other guys.
So,
well, let me ask this real quickly. How do we then translate that and explain to them that there is a path if you love programming, right? If you love the networking, how do we say projectors and control systems and camera systems, we got you right here. We need you.
Okay, so on the networking side, there's a whole group of people that are from the IT side that come in and may not have the appreciation for, hey, we're going to make you look really good on this image. We're going to make you sound really well, intelligible. We're going to make the meetings less fatiguing. Those are the kinds of aspects on that we have to embrace from the networking side to bring the IT professionals in and help them to appreciate what a good room sounds like. They all know what a bad room sounds like because most of them are producing that. And if we can show them an appreciation for here's the audio side, here's how we work with a room to make it sound good, and show them that there is an appreciation for what folks in this industry do. I think it will help them to see the other side of the industry, the AV part.
All right, Mr. Brandis, same question to you. How do we give these young people a path into AV if what they like is programming?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because obviously, making robotic cameras, 90% of our product line is dependent on programming. Our older cameras, you were programming a little PIC chip. I mean, our first camera had 2 or 3 processor chips in it. Now we're running full Linux and, devices and everything like that as robotic cameras. But we have a good system. We bring in, a few interns, and of course we're not the size of Crestron, but out of our 100-something employees, we probably have 5 or 6 interns, and 40 of those employees are programmers. So that's a pretty good ratio, and we're doing a lot of programming. We happen to have a very large university with a very good computer science, 7 miles down the road, University of Minnesota. So we're able to, pick those people out. We've got probably 5 or 6 of the engineers I work with on a daily basis are under the age of 25. And that's the future of the industry from a manufacturer standpoint. Now, how you get that into an integration standpoint, because whose first job out of college wants to sit there and do math problems and design AV systems and figure out your speaker delays and everything like that. So it's a little different for us than it is as manufacturers, since everything we have is built on some sort of control code, whether it's just a basic video switcher. When you press a button, you've got to have some software to tell the video switcher what to do, or if it's a high-end DSP system, that's pretty much all built in a programming fashion. So,
well, and I saved Justin for last because Justin did have an interesting path, right? His former employer, we're using right now. We use Google Hangouts for AVWeek and all of our AVNation stuff. Justin came by way of programming, and the companies the folks we're trying to get are going to. So Justin,
we should be fair. I was actually a hardware engineer and a pretty lousy coder.
But still, you worked for Google.
But yeah, your point is it's about I came with a background in pure engineering and no serious professional background in AV. And the idea that we got to get into, a new graduate's head is that, you don't need, whether it's pro AV or writing apps or whatever it is, you don't need the specialized knowledge. You're a kid out of college. We don't expect you to know anything except about engineering and the methodologies. And so I think there's a line we need to draw for this discussion, actually, between that, manufacturers hiring engineers side and the, integrators hiring system designers and technicians side. Those are really kind of similar but kind of different paths. My approach is we need to get in front of college career fairs and things and get to the tinkerers, those kids who really want to put their hands on stuff and play with things. I think there's a lot in Pro AV for a smart engineer with that tinker sort of mindset to really have fun with, instead of just go write the piece of code that controls the little icon loading system for Google Hangouts Chat Live, whatever this is. Which, by the way, you have to turn off your little lower third and turn it back on to get your logo to change. I figured that out.
There you go.
But then on the integrator side of things, honestly, I don't know how that path works. I think there maybe it comes down to that, guys who like building guitar amps, as Michael said. But boy, is there less and less of that these days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and there are, the DIY movement and the Maker Faire movement is getting momentum. But what they're doing is they're taking, whether it's Raspberry Pi or Arduino, and they're raising and lowering a garage door or doing some other sort of funky things. They're not building amplifiers.
Well, but you know what? There's something okay about that, because we've just gotten to a point where the technology itself is so complex, every piece of it, that there's almost nothing that you can do from scratch. That you can't just buy in a chip or something, and that means what you need to do. Everything is an integration problem then. It means instead of going and buying a few transistors or vacuum tubes and resistors and building a guitar amp, okay, I'm going to buy a working circuit board with a microprocessor and an OS on it, this Raspberry Pi, but then you've got to solve the integration problem. Okay, what do I want to do with this Raspberry Pi? What code do I write to make it do that? So maybe there is something there, for the integration side of the business, in that the DIY movement is all about integration these days instead of about building a power amp.
Yeah, that's a good point, because one of the things that the Raspberry Pi, at least specifically, I don't have much experience with Arduino. I do with Raspberry Pi. I got one to kind of get my kids into programming, and it's very cool. It's a robust system for basic programming. But you're right, Justin. You've got to figure out what it is you want to do. It's not going to hold your hand and say, "Hey, you want to make a remote control?" No, you've got to come up with the idea yourself and then build it from there.
And at the same time, you're never going to go get a bunch of sand and make that microcontroller at home. That's just
not
a thing anymore. The building blocks are just more complex these days. That's just life.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who's ever done that before. So I'm sure there's someone who's built their own microprocessor.
Gordon Moore.
Very nice. Very well done. Look him up, kids. Just look him up. This is from AV Magazine. Polycom and Microsoft have expanded their relationship. Polycom plans to deliver a new series of video collaboration solutions purpose-built for Skype for Business. Okay, Mike Brandis, we'll end with you because you're kind of a competing competitor there. But Mr. Braithwaite, explain this to me, please. And the reason I'm saying it like this, one of the more popular booths at Integrated Systems Europe in Amsterdam this year was the Microsoft booth. The reason was their fancy schmancy new hang on the wall and do everything, including what Polycom is doing. So, as a manufacturer, why would you partner with a company that's also competing with you?
Well, that's a pretty difficult, tall order, I would say. And there are many companies along the road that have been left in the dirt that have actually done this with, and Microsoft's actually pretty has done this many times before. In Polycom's case, their revenues have been declining, and their piece has come down. And basically, they still make the majority of their revenues from hardware products.
Okay.
And yet today it's a software world, right? And so if you look at Microsoft, of course, with the acquisition, with Link and with the acquisition of Skype and all of that, you look at this and from a strategic point of view, okay, how can we work with this? Even though yes, we're competing, it's a very tough road. I've been down it myself with them. Some of the danger also, besides just competing with them, is that, in fact, I'd say bigger than competing with them, which sounds weird, is that they change they'll turn. And so you'll be on a planning cycle, a product cycle, and you're working, and then all of a sudden they change and say, oh, by the way, we're not supporting that OS anymore, and we're not doing this. And a big company like Polycom can probably absorb that, but a small company, it can be devastating too.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Kennington, I'm not, there's a number of people I could equate Crestron and this too, but just straight up, as a manufacturer, same question. Isn't it kind of dangerous? Why would you partner with a company that's kind of sort of competing with you?
Yes, there is danger to it. Michael hit some of the right points about it. But more and more, especially as the companies get bigger, our size and bigger than that, competing and cooperating with the same manufacturers is just more and more a fact of life. We do it. We have for a long time, in some sense, since Crestron has been the core of automation integration systems. Our products can control other manufacturers' products. That's part of what we do for a long time.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we've started branching out into some of those fields. I mean, look at digital media. 10 years ago, you used a Crestron system to control an Extron switch.
Yeah.
Now digital media has come along, and we build the switches. So we can still control that other thing, and I'm not going to say that those two names are in a lot of cooperation. But we have other cases. We have suppliers that are also – we buy some products from Barco. Through some subsidiaries of theirs. Meanwhile, there are places that we compete with Barco. It's just the reality. It's not a lot of overlap. That's
I got you. I followed you for a second. It took me a second.
But like I said, as companies get bigger and bigger, and the space we're operating in isn't getting that much bigger, we're just going to start bumping into each other more and more from the competitive and the cooperative side of things. Polycom is an interesting example for us. Actually, that CX8000 box in this article is actually the Crestron RL box.
Yes.
They buy it from us and are a reseller for it. Some of these other products are, of course, their own. But there again, we sort of compete with Polycom ourselves in that RL product line, but then we got together and cooperated and said, hey, let's not compete on this, and instead work together. It's the nature of business these days, and it makes things back to complexity, like in our last little session. But things have gotten so complex that you just live with it. This is how it is. Figure it out.
Okay. And in case you weren't following along, where Barco and Crestron kind of overlap is the wireless video. Did I get that right, Justin? The wireless.
Well, wireless video is where we compete and cooperate.
Yes. All right.
But then in other spaces, some video processors and junk, it's really more their expertise and more sort of edge products for us. But there's some pieces of overlap.
All right. That was the main one that came to my mind. All right, Mr. Brandis, I'll give you a swing at this. Why would you cooperate or collaborate with somebody competing with you?
Well, since its inception, Vadio's been doing that. We started making a box that you stick to the back of a Sony pan-tilt zoom camera, and instead of having all your cables going up there, you have two category cables. So we've been doing that. We still sell Sony. We still sell Panasonic, and you know what? We'll control them with our controllers. So we do a lot of, we can make money without selling cameras, and, conversely, so can Sony. NewTek TriCaster doesn't manufacture a whole bunch of robotic cameras, but they can make money off of it, integrating control with our cameras, for instance. So, yeah, with a lot of your competitors, there's money to be made by, having cross support. The days of, from a design standpoint and from a user purchasing standpoint, saying, I need this entire system, I will buy it from one manufacturer, are over. You don't say, especially when you get into some purchasing contracts where you do line-by-line pricing and you sub pieces out and you get into that whole, thing, everything's got to be able to talk with everything else, is what it comes down to. Now, Polycom has been working with Microsoft for a long time. I remember the university I used to be at, we bought 850 Polycom CX600 handsets. There's a ton of money Polycom made off of a platform that they didn't have any real skin in the game in. So their phones could work with Link. They were optimized for Link, according to the badge, which I don't know how much that cost them to put on there. But similarly, we're coming out with a new box that integrates, and we're going to be pursuing Link certification. And it comes down to the fact that, if you continue to do things the way you've always done them, you won't continue to be doing things much longer. And Polycom makes fantastic video conferencing equipment, but 5 years ago, the market share of codec-based video conferencing equipment compared to now is night and day difference. Heck, you can plug. We're doing this now off of laptops, iPads, iPhones, etc. And before, if we wanted to meet via video, we'd be renting out a room somewhere, and we'd have a huge booth that had proprietary video conferencing, and my Polycom system wouldn't dare talk to your Tambird system, and so there's no longer that amount of money for them to make, and they still have to make money for their shareholders or for their company or to keep their employees employed, which is great, and they're finding new ways to do it. So in that regard, who can certainly condemn them? If you ask Crestron, 10 years ago, if they were going to get into the video conferencing space and in earnest, the answer is probably not, but their Crestron RL system was great, and I had a few of them, and I really liked them. So you adapt, you move on, you find new markets. It is what it is. And as a manufacturer, if you don't do that, the niche for buying everything from one manufacturer is so small that if you can't partner with other people's products, even if they're your competitors, you're not going to be around much longer.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, if you wanted to talk to somebody, you instead of a video conference, you had an ISDN or you had some sort of satellite hookup.
I don't know what that means.
Tell us more about ye olden times, Tim.
Jeez, you know what? Good night.
10, 15 years ago, I was in middle school.
Oh, wow. Holy Braithwaite, help me here.
I'm just kidding. It was elementary.
Oh, jeez. Never mind. You know what, you young whippersnappers.
We're the future of the industry, Tim.
I know you are, and apparently Braithwaite and I are on our last legs and retiring here soon. Sony has come up with an interesting product. If the brochure online is any indication, it looks very pretty. The picture looks gorgeous. It is a VPL GTZ1. Yay for product names. What it is, in short, it's a 4K short throw. Let me say that part again. 4K short throw. Justin, we'll start with you on this one. Where are we at with 4K in general? The fact that Sony, which was one of the first projector manufacturers to have 4K, let's give them props where they at least where they've earned it. They were one of the first projector manufacturers to have 4K. Now they have a short throw, which is one of those product categories that's kind of gained momentum over the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years. But where are we at in terms of infrastructure, in terms of endpoints, displays, whether it's actual monitors or projectors, and as far as the transportation?
Well, we're here on all of those fronts. I mean, these days, if you go to Best Buy and just want to spend $2,000 on a TV, you're getting a 4K display. That's more and more. That's all there is. I was finally able this week to buy a 24-inch 4K display because sometimes I just need small stuff for the lab, but it needs to be 4K for me. As far as infrastructure and distribution, HD-Base-T has been there ready to do 4K really since its beginning. That helped us in digital media to get our complete solution, which we now have done, shipping, ready. So you can distribute, you can switch, you can display 4K. A lot of PCs these days can output 4K, and there are a few other sources. So that only leaves that content piece of the puzzle. A little bit exists here and there. You can generate it from your PC. So any of the high-end desktop visualization type guys can take advantage of these pixels. Yeah. It's not yet easy to go watch a movie at home in 4K. There are ways to do it, but not a lot. Now, so this is a prediction of mine coming true that we're going to get there. It's an economic inevitability because the way you build TVs guarantees that we'll get to 4K for free. So now we just sort of wait for the content to catch up. It's 1999 all over again, and high definition TVs look cool as hell. Now we just need 1 or 2 channels to show videos of nature loops over and over again in 4K.
Amen.
Then it'll be 2000.
I completely agree with that. So, and actually, speaking of that, Crestron there was an announcement, I think that was this week, that you guys are starting to phase out some of your, I guess, quote unquote HD products for 4K. The scaler is kind of getting phased out, and for the replacement is your 4K scaler, so it's there.
So what we have done, it actually started several weeks ago with some different products. Last April 1st, 2014, we shipped our first set of 4K products for digital media, some inputs, some outputs, some receivers, etc. What we did in January of this year is announce that we had discontinued all of the 2K products that those replaced, And then also because, you don't want to piss people off by saying you can't buy the cheap one anymore.
Yeah. We
went ahead and dropped the price of all the 4K gear to exactly match the 2K gear that we just discontinued, that it replaced. So part of us, that was part of a long-term strategy for us in this transition, actually. We knew that probably over time we would, beat the cost out of our 4K products. This gave us 9 or 10 months of real field experience, frankly, to make sure everything worked as perfectly as we hoped. And it gave us the ability to now say, you can buy a 4K system without paying any cost premium at all. And so that's sort of the message that we have going forward is 4K is here to stay, and there's not even any point to buy 2K infrastructure now when the systems you design are supposed to be good for 3, 5, 7 years. To go put in a 2K infrastructure in a world where 4K costs the same, isn't the right decision for most places.
I'm going to ask somewhat of a silly question, but somewhat of a serious question. Whose marketing decision was it to release anything on April 1st? I mean, seriously?
Well, it comes down very simply to we decided a long time ago we only release things on the first of the month.
But it's April 1st. That's April Fool's Day. You don't do that.
But I can't go 60 days without releasing a new product either. So I know it's tough, but the products are real. They do exist.
All right.
You could still get them on April 2nd.
Come on. You could have done it on April 2nd.
In fact, we probably did. We tend to. Yeah. No. It's done. We'll ship it tomorrow.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with Crestron before. Anyhow, Mr. Brandis, where are we with 4K, and whether it's Vadio or in general, where are we at with 4K?
Well, several things. 4K is becoming more and more. Again, just like Justin said, it's kind of like when you went from standard def to high def. People are always like, "Well, where's the high def content?" Well, it doesn't matter. You get a display, you get a projector, you get infrastructure that's 4K ready when 4K content's ready. And whatever you send down that pipe, it doesn't matter. It's ready for 4K. So what does that mean? That means if someone comes out with a 4K 30 camera, it's not your ideal 4K 60, but you know what? It'll do 1080p a whole lot better than any other 1080p camera, and you can grow up into 4K 30. So, I mean, it's still not there from everybody, let's start recording our lectures or doing video conferencing in 4K. But it's there for I need a short throw projector to run nonstop display in a retail store, or the 4K ready content display infrastructure, everything is great, and the niche of people actively using it now is growing. Before it was just a few digital signage manufacturers. I went to Four Winds and they had a few LG 84-inch 4K monitors, and I was like, holy crap, this looks really good. And now you see those same 4K monitors, starting to grow. I'm in a lot of airports as a function of my job, and you're starting to see what used to be these huge honking Samsung Magic Info displays that weighed roughly the same as a boat are now these streamlined 4K displays that are showing incredibly clear content. You're able to fold down the size of your windows and get a whole bunch more on the screen. And then again, I wrote an article back in September for AV Technology magazine, and I talked with Justin and Tom over at Crestron about 4K, and my laptop outputs way more than 1920 by 1080. So when I walk into a conference room, why is my larger display a much lower resolution than my laptop?
Yeah,
that becomes a problem when you're used to organizing things, or you've built your PowerPoint, in one resolution. You throw it up on the screen, and all of a sudden it looks crunched and garbled. These are challenges that are only going to become more problematic and aren't going to go away. I don't think any computer manufacturer is going to be like, guys, we screwed the pooch. We're going to stop outputting anything over 1920 by 1080. Our bad.
No, they're going to continue to give us screwy resolutions too.
Yeah, and weird connectors.
Yeah.
So these are the problems that we have to adapt to. And you know what? People are buying a whole lot more Apple computers for their workforce than they are buying Sony projectors for their conference rooms. So we react to that information, and we have to, or we all wind up standing next to each other in the unemployment line.
That's true. We've talked about that a lot today. Mr. Braithwaite, where are we at with 4K, sir?
So I think 4K is already here. It's already well established, and what I would say is instead of focusing maybe on one particular resolution, we really should talk about higher resolution. SMPTE, who creates lots of different resolutions, and if you're a part of the computer industry, you adopt certain ones. If you're part of the media industry, movie industry, you adopt others. So there is a little bit of confusion out there as well. The announcement on the 2020 Olympics in Japan that will be broadcast in 8K, that's like that throws a wrench into a lot of people, and even some people who want to upgrade or buy, and maybe maybe I should consider this. Apple, Mike brought up Apple, and Apple's a great example of somebody who loves throwing wrenches into everybody's world. And Apple will produce products that are in the middle of all of these different resolutions, which they already are selling right now. You guys probably saw the announcement of Apple. The new MacBook doesn't have HDMI, doesn't have DisplayPort. It is only going to be using USB Type-C connectors for the video outputs. So if you look at all of these video distribution technologies, and everybody that's relying on HDMI or DVI or any of these other type connections, there's a serious Apple is one that will put a serious dent. Because anybody that's coming into a presentation room, a conference room, anybody that has a MacBook Pro coming in, they're probably going to be connecting virtually. And so I'm going to walk in, I'm going to have my presentation or give my presentation, and there's not going to be any connection. That's my opinion, and that's, I believe, what everybody would say is going to happen. However, when you do need a physical connection and so forth, not many people are going to have the USB type connectors on their wall plates, on their pop-up boxes, if you really think about that. And USB 1.1 or 2.0 type connections aren't going to cut it. So anybody that has that infrastructure in place, all of a sudden somebody walks in with a MacBook Pro, there's going to be egg on somebody's face, and customers that are upset because they can't put an image up on there. But anyways,
no. All right, that works.
Well, they're Mac users. They know to bring their dongles.
Well, that's the thing. The one thing that Apple is really good at, and they're better. They're good at all sorts of things, but it is, to Justin's point, is selling dongles to make the transition easier, right? Yeah. In all seriousness, this is going to be a transition. To Michael's point, there won't be tomorrow, and there might be some one or two conference rooms out there, but there's not this connector out there sitting right here in a bunch of conference rooms. There's either wireless connections, we talked about that earlier, or there's some sort of still VGA, and don't throw things at me, but there are still VGAs, and they were just put in yesterday. And HDMI and DisplayPort and a fire, probably not FireWire, but Thunderbolt and stuff. So, all right, let's wrap this up, guys, with one thing here from SCN, AVNetwork.com. The second annual SCN Stellar Service Awards, and this just lists a bunch of folks that are doing really cool things really right, and as luck would have it, I have three manufacturers on, so I'm going to ask a simple question. Brandis, we'll start with you. How do you provide really good service to a large swath of customers and clients? You have integrators, and you have end users. You've got education folks and technology managers from courts to corporate to classrooms. From Vadio standpoint or from your standpoint, how do you provide really great service to those folks?
Well, it should be incredibly simple, but a lot of people, complicate the process. It starts with doing and being as proactive as you can on the front end. A tech support or a support interaction that begins only with a frustrated phone call is not a good support interaction. Mm-hmm. Support begins when you write your product manual. Support begins when you train and when you announce products. You don't just say, "Hey, we're offering this device and it'll do this, this, and this," and provide no supporting documentation. And when someone goes to buy it, they're really frustrated configuring it, and then they're calling your support, and that's a nightmare. So increasing your technical training up front. doing more and more technical training, offering design and support solutions assistance. Hey, we'll validate your system design to make sure that everything you spec will work. That's a great example of doing support ahead of the actual need for support, which should hopefully in turn reduce the amount of need for support. And then on the back end, doing everything you can to resolve an issue. I work very closely with our support team, and I know what a not incredibly fun job it is to sit on the phone and get yelled at for 8 hours a day, or sit on the phone and work through incredibly nuanced problems all day. But it's necessary, and having a team of people dedicated to problem solving and dedicated to resolving the issue instead of putting unnecessary pressure on call times and answering enough calls and responding to emails. That's what it comes down to. You can send a bunch of emails, you can spend a bunch of time on the phone, but if you don't resolve any issues, you're not really accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
So once manufacturers, wrap their head around what the purpose of our support is, our support isn't to handle 200 calls a day, it's to resolve customer issues. You frame the issue a whole lot better and realize that starts well before customers are installing your systems.
That's a really great. That's probably one of the better answers I've heard from a manufacturer. So very good, Mr. Braithwaite. What does great customer service, look like to you?
Well, I can't. I gotta admit that that answer Mike gave was really good, and I appreciate it. And he's preaching to the choir here because we feel the same way. But what I would extend onto that or add to that is being. So I agree that as much upfront effort as possible is the very best thing. However, even with all of that upfront help, there's still going to be times where somebody's in a pinch and all this. And I would say it's really important that the service or the ability for you to help the customer is available when they need it. There's so many companies that, depending on where they are, if they're on the East Coast or they're on the West Coast, and depending on where you are, you might have to wait a whole day before you actually talk to anybody to find out something that was missing or some pins that were out or some. And so what I would say is, if you have customers in a certain time zone, or you have, at Clear One, we have customers in every time zone on the planet. Believe me, I get calls and emails in every single time zone. And if you have the ability to take that call and help that person in real time and not wait a 24-hour cycle, I believe you also are providing very good support for that, because there's nothing more frustrating than that. And a lot of times somebody's looking over their shoulder and saying, hey, when is this going to be done? And if you can't get to somebody or you can't get the information you need, there is nothing more frustrating than that on a job site.
Yeah, I would agree with you, because I've been there. Mr. Kennington, what is, whether from Crestron's point of view or your personal one, how do you guys provide really great customer service?
Well, I mean, me too. I want to echo Mike's comments that do the work up front, and your life will be much easier. We've got a whole department whose job is to vet customer designs, help them with their designs. They come to me when they don't know how is this new thing going to work and plug in. Save yourself the trouble by making them have an easier time up front. But what I've learned really at Crestron about customer service, it's a lot of work, but it's very simple. You make commitments and then keep those commitments. One thing we don't do is get to the end of a tech support call and say, you know what, it's not working, send it back, we'll give you a refund. Because that doesn't help anybody, really. You got your money back, but now you've got a hole in your rack and no video on the screen. So what we sell really are not black boxes. We sell black boxes and the absolute promise that no matter what it ends up taking, we will make the stupid thing work. Now, 99.5% of the time, it works exactly like it's supposed to. It plugs in, everything's good. But when it comes down to it, I mean, I put engineers on airplanes to other states, to other countries, to go figure out what's wrong with something. We've got several levels of tech support, of course. We're a pretty big company. But things make their way all the way to me, all the way to our CTO, Fred. And if we have to, we will go out there with real engineers, with real oscilloscopes, and figure out exactly what's going on and fix it. I had to learn it when I started here 5+ years ago, because advanced tech support would call up and say, we need to take an engineer and send him on site. And I would say, you can't do that. You're going to screw up my new product schedule. But what I eventually learned is what I said a minute ago. If somebody else sells a $500 box and we sell a $1,000 box, we're actually selling that $1,000 box and the promise that no matter what it takes, we will make the stupid thing work for you.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's just that level of commitment, which is easy to say and easy to understand, but just sometimes an awful lot of work to implement. That's all.
Well, it's work to implement, but here's the thing, and it's the crazy thing, and I'm not going to mention any companies' names, but there's times where you might get a wink and a promise, but coming through on it is a whole nother story.
Yep.
So, kudos to all three of you guys for really, really great answers. I appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Mike Brandis from Vadio, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me on.
Where can people find you or any of your writings?
Yeah, I write on AVNation TV every Friday. I give you 5 articles you may have missed. I occasionally still write at MikeBrandisAV.com. I tweet a lot. If you happen to, 9 times out of 10, I'll be the person training you on new Vadio products. So if you ever want to stop in for an online training, love for you to listen to my dulcet baritone as it washes over you in the afternoon on some product knowledge.
That would be awesome. We should form a barbershop quartet, just the you and just the 4 of us. Mr. Brandis, thank you. Thank you. Mike Braithwaite from Clear One, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, as always. I did want to put a plug out for the upcoming Infocom Expo in June.
Okay.
I have a session in the university, Infocom University, that's called Professional Audio Video Streaming over Internet Protocols.
Very cool.
And that's Wednesday, June 17th. So if anybody's there Wednesday, June 17th, the class is from 12:30 to 2. It's worth CTS renewal credits, of course. And please come by and heckle or come by and take a listen.
And they can sign up for that on the Infocom University.
That is correct.
All right, very good. Yeah, once you actually do sign up for Infocom and you haven't yet, go get your registration. You got access to all those classes. You can sign up. Everything from the 3-day boot camps to the Super Tuesdays to like Mr. Braithwaite's class. Last but not least, Mr. Justin Kennington, thank you, sir, from Crestron.
Well, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
It's always fun.
It's always fun. Where can people find you and or Crestron?
Well, I can neither read nor write in English, so you can't find me anywhere easily. But Crestron.com/4K, Crestron.com/digital media, the best place to keep up to date on what I've been up to.
All right. And Justin will be in the middle of the Crestron booth for all 3 days.
I would not miss it for the world.
I know you wouldn't. So, my name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me. At this point, I'm just biding my time until football season starts again. In St. Louis, some crazy thing called baseball is getting all kinds of coverage. It's stupid. But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. You'll find Brandis's Friday 5. You'll find all sorts of really great people doing all sorts of really great things. And then they just let me hang out from time to time. Live, which is a live staging event show. The social, AV Social, which is social media and marketing. Our buddy Chris Netto has started something called the AV hashtag. It's a little game that we play with the AV tweeps on Twitter. So if you're into that Twitter sphere thing, go check that out if you would. But everything starts and ends at the AVNation website. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been AV Week.